Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. This is Reservations, and I'm Rain Wayland.
And I'm Chester McBadbat.
Wait. Is that from Fairly Odd Parents?
Yeah.
The guy that's voiced by, oh, fuck. Hang on. Shut up. Everyone shut up.
I made you too.
Oh, fuck. He's from American Pie. Fucking, God.
I mean, I'll tell you this. He's voiced by the same guy who plays Max Goof. It's the same.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. But then, yeah, Jason Marsden. But then they got the guy from, American Pie to take over.
Oh, did they? I don't think we watched that.
Or maybe I'm flipping that because I could have sworn, Eddie Thomas Finch was Chester.
I don't know. I've only noticed.
No, you're right.
That it was Max Goof because Haley and I, we watch cartoons every night before bed, and sometimes it's Fairly Odd Parents.
No, you're right. Because as soon as I started listening for Jason Marsden's voice, I was like, no, that's right. No, he was voiced by Frankie Muniz. That
Really?
was it. Seasons 1 through 3, he was Frankie Muniz, and then from 3 onward, it's Jason Marsden.
That's weird. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Either way, I knew that great name.
Yeah, Future Rain should put just a picture of him over your face for the rest of the episode.
The rest of the episode?
Yeah, the rest of the
episode.
Seems
like overkill.
Now they're not going to be able to see what you're actually saying. I mean, they'll hear it, but
they'll hear it. Sure. Yeah.
Well, welcome back, everyone. It's funny. It's funny we opened the show with that because me and my assistant manager just recently got accused of being 8-year-olds. Because at our store, we'll just put movies on, just whatever, something family friendly. Sure. I tried to pass the time by putting the extended cut of Lord of the Rings on.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, one day he put on Into the Spider-Verse, and this guy, bro, he was like, "How can y'all watch this?" And we were like, "It's good. It's a good movie. It's good for all ages." And he was like, "Yeah, but it's a cartoon." And we were like, "Okay, and?" And he's like, "What are you, 8?" I'm like, "Yes, you're asking the 8-year-old store manager for help on your phone. Who's really the child here?"
I don't get that, man, because we've discussed at length, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, roll the tape that, animation is for everyone. So
yeah, 100%.
It's only America that views it more as being a children's medium.
Yeah. I mean, that's why Ben Shapiro is making a direct ripoff of Bluey.
We're not talking about that. I'll be too mad. Can't talk about it.
Yeah. Bluey is the best. It needs to remain unspoiled.
That's right.
But you know what else is the best? Today's episode. So, buddy, since this was your pick, I will let you remind everyone what we're talking about today.
Sure. Today, we are discussing Damien Chazelle's film, Whiplash.
So this was a first for me.
Nice. God, if only I could do that again.
I mean, I remember hearing everything about it, man. Like, I remember the Oscars that year, Neil Patrick Harris hosted, and they had Miles Teller playing the drums live, and, they did the whole, not my tempo bit. And, I've seen it parodied, American Dad did a whole Whiplash.
Yeah. Oh my God, the Whiplash clown episode is so good.
It's really good. It's really good. No. If I try to quote it, we're going to be on it for like 30 minutes.
Right. But it's great. Yeah.
So the point of what I'm saying is I've known of it. I know it's in the forefront of everyone's minds of being one of the the best films to come out of the 2010s.
Yeah. I think it's 2014, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's 2014, but I'm just generalizing.
Oh,
2010s.
Yeah, definitely.
But I just didn't feel like watching a movie of someone get abused.
Sure.
You know, because we've all seen the scenes. I've seen the scenes of J.K. Simmons' abuse towards Miles Teller, and I was just like, I don't know if that's for me, man.
Yeah.
But finishing it last night, because I was preemptive, and I actually watched it the day before rather than the day of.
Nice.
I'm gonna be honest, man. I left the movie exactly how you felt. I was like, fuck, that was so good.
You see it again immediately. Yeah.
And before we move on, I know we try to get better about this, but if you want to watch this, it just got put on Netflix.
Nice.
Or own a physical copy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, buddy, would you like me to do the honors of the synopsis?
Yeah, I don't feel like
or would you like to do it? Okay. Whiplash, 2014 drama film, written and directed by Damien Chazelle, stars Miles Teller as Andrew Neiman, a first-year student at the prestigious Schaefer Conservatory in New York, with dreams of becoming one of the greatest jazz drummers of his generation. He looks to other great jazz musicians as inspiration, but he wants to be the best out of his generation. And nothing more prestigious is a J.K. Simmons character, Terrence Fletcher, who is known around campus as the best jazz teacher at the school. And Miles Teller wants to essentially be in his good graces and wants to be chosen to play in his jazz band ensemble, which he is. Which, of course, I'm yada yada anything a lot of this because we're going to spend time to talk about it.
Yeah.
But he is chosen, but it becomes quickly apparent that Fletcher is emotionally abusive or manipulative, physically abusive, and verbally abusive. He is relentlessly reaching for perfection. He demands perfection from all of his musicians, and he gets it. Which I definitely want to spend like 3 hours later in the episode talking about that. But Andrew decides he's not going to let that get him down, that he will be the best. He will show Fletcher, I can do this. And again, yada through a lot. Eventually everything kind of comes to a head where Andrew, pretty much driven to the point of madness and his own personal well-being, is tasked by his father and a lawyer to anonymously give a testimony about Fletcher's abusive behavior to get him fired from Schaefer, which then leads to what we think is maybe a healing moment between the two characters of them having some mutual respect, but it's just a revenge ploy by Fletcher when Fletcher invites him to play in a jazz festival. But Andrew decides, I'll show you, and earns Fletcher's respect by essentially doing the one thing that Fletcher wanted. And that's Whiplash.
Pretty good. Good job.
Like I said, dude, I want to spend like a good chunk of the episode talking about the ending because I've watched a lot of videos deep diving into the ending, and now I kind of have more of an understanding.
Yeah.
But we'll save that for later.
Sure.
Where would you like to begin with this?
I mean, we can start with Andrew because, I mean, obviously everything is through Andrew's point of view. There was a scene that Chazelle was asked to cut of Fletcher in his apartment after the first day of Neiman being in the studio band,
Mhm.
because everything needs to be from Andrew's point of view, right?
Okay.
Everything needs to
That
be
makes
from his
sense.
perspective, because if we just see Fletcher alone in his apartment, we break that, right?
Right.
Um, and Andrew is so interesting because Andrew is driven, obsessive, and and I guess tenacious, I guess you would say, because
Mhm.
we see him, around his dad, right? When they go to the movies, we see him around other people, we see him around students, we see him interact with or not interact with people around him. And there's a point where we see Andrew notice certain things. He notices like people at a party. He'll notice Connolly and his girlfriend right before class. You know,
Mhm.
and it's I think at first you're sort of like maybe he's longing for these things, and perhaps he might be, but
Mhm.
I think the majority of him believes that these are needless distractions, right?
Mhm.
Connolly is distracting himself with this girl where he should be practicing more, right? Where he should
Right.
be giving his all with the drums, right? He sees people
Mhm.
partying on campus and in his dorm building. He goes, I'm gonna go listen to Buddy Rich in my headphones, right? I'm gonna go
Mhm.
practice in the practice room, right? Um,
Right.
and even though he does end up asking that girl out, and good lord, I can't remember her name. Um,
Melissa, I can never pronounce. She was Supergirl.
she's Supergirl, yes. Nicole is her character's name. Um,
Yeah.
when he asked Nicole out, it's because he's riding high on the success of getting into studio band, right? He
Mhm.
thinks, a part of him is like, I can do both. Look at me go, right?
Right.
Uh, and of course, we see that that's just not possible for Andrew, right?
Mhm.
Um, a great a great culmination of all of these ideas is in that dinner scene with his family.
Mhm.
Uh, he is so unlikable. Um, Andrew is. I mean,
Yeah.
his entire family is unlikable. Let's be clear,
Well,
because they're nasty
except
to
for
him
his
too.
dad.
No, because I mean, even Paul Reiser, which by the way, um, in the theater, when I saw it for the first time, halfway through, I go, "Is that Paul Reiser?" Didn't notice the first time. I didn't notice in the first scene that it was Paul Reiser. It blew my mind. Anyway, so no,
That's
because even his dad is a little snarky to him, right?
yeah.
Because he's like, um, words you'll never hear from the NFL, which was it was a good line. Um,
It was a sick burn,
but then
and
his
then his dad
dad
hits
said,
him.
is Radio City calling, right?
Lincoln Center.
Oh, Lincoln Center. I'm sorry, is Lincoln Center calling? It's fucked up. You know what I mean? Like it's his dad.
Yeah.
But I think he's starting to see that Andrew is hyper obsessive, and to
Mhm.
the point of really isolating himself from everybody he knows, right?
Yeah.
Because he's hyper focused on this one thing, right?
Mhm.
Um, and he's just not he's not complacent. He's not willing to settle for mediocrity, right?
Mhm.
Again, that dinner scene is so important to this idea of who Andrew is in the first place, because they're talking about how proud they are of, I guess, his cousin or something, um,
Yeah.
is doing well in football, and it's Division 3. Right?
Yeah.
It's a good dig, but again, where they are proud, happy, content with these accomplishments, Andrew sees it as, but it's not the best, right? So I don't know
Mhm.
what you guys are celebrating for, you know? And
Yeah.
even Andrew's not fully celebrating himself either. He is sort of giving himself the opportunity to say, hey, well, I'm in this great music school, and not only that, but I'm also in the very prestigious ensemble band, right?
Mhm.
But even the way he says it, it's almost like but there's still a lot more to go, right? Like I'm on the
Right.
way, but I mean, this is still sort of the bottom, whatever.
Yeah. And it will, and I agree. That dinner scene is so telling because, like, if you haven't figured out who Andrew is by this point, I think that dinner scene really, Damien Chazelle really is like, this is who he is.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with the line of, I'd rather die broke, but remembered at 34 than sober and rich and no one knows who I am.
Right.
And, that's very telling, because most normal people would take the sober, rich 90-year-old, I mean, Jesus, that's what I hope I'd,
Sure. I think
live
most
towards.
people are like, well, if I was at all successful, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what if I wasn't the best? I still made it doing something I like to do, right? That's not good
Mm-hmm.
enough for Andrew, and it never will be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And something else I saw in a video, a lot of videos I was watching, hopefully Future Rain will remember to put it up. I think he forgot last episode.
Duh.
One of the videos I watched talked about Andrew's clothes
Mm-hmm.
and how this descent into really hyper focusing on his drumming. Damon Giselle uses Andrew's clothing as a good way to showcase Andrew's hyperfixation.
Mm-hmm.
Where when we first see him, he's in white, really kind of
Yes.
showing just his innocence. And then progressively as the movie moves on, he's in darker and darker clothing. And that dinner scene is sort of a nice middle ground.
A midway
Yes,
shift.
he's in darker. Yeah, yes, he's in darker clothing, but it's a lighter color of plaid.
That's really interesting because Hitchcock did that in Psycho with Janet Leigh. Janet Leigh is wearing white underwear in the very beginning, but when she steals the money, it's black. Anyway.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. But yeah, no, you're right, and it's also the state of his clothing, also,
Mm-hmm.
because like his like V-necks, there's like holes in them, and it's dirty, and like it's not the first time he's worn that shirt that week. You can tell,
Mm-hmm.
or he's never changed
And
the shirt.
yeah, and you can tell how much he's pushing himself because the V-neck is getting more and more stretched out from
Yeah,
the sweat. And yeah, Andrew's he's a very interesting character for us to sympathize with,
yeah,
because like you've been saying, like we've both been saying, he is so hyper fixated on being the best, like his breakup scene with Nicole. Like I told Ashley, because Ashley was kind of half paying attention. She was on her computer. She was kind of half paying attention.
I don't know what that's like at all. She's the same.
So I was telling her, I was like, 2% of me understands where Andrew's coming from. 2% of I'm about to get really into this.
Yeah.
I don't want you to feel like you are less than important. So we just call it.
But 98% of
But
you?
then the other 98% of me is like, bro, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, because especially because again, I think Damien Chazelle knew that the audience was going to be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
That Nicole pretty much says what we're thinking is, you think I will keep you from that, and that I don't have the capabilities of making my own decision.
Yeah, I
And
mean, their first date, okay. So again, his interactions with people are so fascinating because the first date, he takes her to the pizza place, and really he just likes the pizza place because they play jazz, right? And which again, I get it, right? He's I completely understand. He loves it because he's surrounded by something that he loves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's very distracted by the music, number one, but also he is completely out of his element and has no sense of comprehension when it comes to Nicole not really knowing what her next move is, not knowing what her next step is, not knowing, what she's going to do next or what she's going to study. And once she does find that the subject of what she wants to study, she doesn't know what she's going to do after that. She doesn't know what she's going to do with that. And Andrew has no concept of what that's like. And so he's being really kind of mean to her during the date because he's sort of just snippy and sort of like, well, what do you mean? Like, well, why did you choose your school? And she said a very, Jer answer, which is, I apply to lots of places and let me in. That's something I would say.
Yeah.
And that's something I think a lot of people would say. I think a lot of people probably identify with Nicole.
I agree. Like, yes, we all have our dream college that we want to go to or dream job, but sometimes we need backup plans. And if this place is going to get you the things you need, why not take it?
And
yeah,
again,
I agree.
Andrew has no idea what to do with that information. He goes, I don't understand. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, because, he, again, I just said it, but he is really a hard character to sympathize with. We sympathize, I would say a normal person would sympathize with his drive, that he is determined. Like, yeah, I was like, I could get on board with that. We could sympathize with his abuse from Fletcher, which we'll get into because I want to really talk about that.
He's next. Spoiler alert. That's what we're talking about next.
Oh my God. But we could sympathize with that. But then, we have these scenes of just utter, like, the wreck. The fact that he is so fucked up from that wreck, but he still barely makes it to the competition because he's so, I earned this part and I'm gonna play it. A normal person would be like, hey, I got in a wreck. I think I have a concussion. I need to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
But Andrew has become, I would say at this point, that point in the film, that he has become so hyper fixated on, this is my chance and I'm not going to blow it.
Or just proving Fletcher wrong too. That's a lot of it.
Yeah.
It's sort of this, fuck you, I'm going to do what I have to do and you're not going to take it away from me. Right?
Yeah, especially because we get that right before where he tells him like, no, I earned this part and I'm going to fucking play it.
Right.
And, we get this, honestly, one of my favorite head-to-head scenes with him, which is a good Andrew having a good, fuck you mentality. I will save it. I was going to bring it up. I was like, no, we're going to save it for the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. And then we have, good transition. Then we have Fletcher, who, by the way, knowing that J.K. Simmons is such a sweet guy made it so hard to watch this because I was like, he truly is an asshole. Like,
all right. So I'm going to say, on the surface, yes, you watch this movie for the first time, or let's say a casual moviegoer will watch it and take it at face value, and he's just mean and awful and evil and nasty, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Fletcher is so much more complex than that because, there are scenes, and I don't think he's putting it on, right? One of my favorite scenes of Fletcher is when he's talking to his buddy in the hallway, and he's got a little girl with him, and he's being very sweet to the little girl, and he's like, "Are you going to play in my band when you grow up?" High five, and then giving his buddy a hug, and then he walks in the room with the band and goes, "All right, cocksuckers, listen up," and he's right back to being typical Fletcher. But really, what he's doing is, and of course this becomes obvious once you start digging a little bit, and so I'm not saying anything profound here, but what he's doing is he is doing what he feels is necessary to curate perfection and greatness, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He is absolutely telling the truth when he and Andrew are at that jazz bar, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's not messing with Andrew anymore. In that moment, I don't believe. I do believe he truly feels that what perfect and the greatest musicians have gone through is necessary. What Charlie Parker went through was necessary, right?
Mm-hmm.
True story, by the way, about Charlie Parker. That was not made up for the movie. That's really what happened to Charlie Parker.
Yeah.
There's a great Clint Eastwood film called Bird, by the way. Forrest Whitaker plays Charlie Parker. It's amazing. Check it out. So what he's doing is he's pushing people to the absolute limit. If they come out the other side better and driven and ready to prove him wrong, he has found his next great musician.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so, like when he talks about the other drummer who goes to pre-med, which I thought was funny, that he's like he lost focus. He got discouraged. He went to med school.
Yeah. Tanner.
Tanner, thank you. He's doing this with everyone, but obviously our main character is Andrew, and he sees something special in Andrew, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think as soon as the movie opens, when Fletcher walks into that practice room and sees Andrew practicing late at night, when he could be doing something else, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the first, sort of Fletcher recognizing this drive and this obsession with Andrew. And so, of course, he's going to do his classic Fletcher thing where he's going to, not be nice and sort of manipulate him a little bit with the, I'm looking for players, so why'd you stop playing? And then as soon as he starts playing and finish, he goes, why did you start playing again? I didn't, you know what I mean? Like he's manipulating him pretty early, but I think he recognizes that drive. And so now he's going to go find Andrew, and let's see if what he saw in that short moment has some legs, right? Let's see if it has some sort of future, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this brings us to what makes this film so great, and what even why we have a film in the first place, which is Damien Chazelle's short film, which is Andrew's first day in Studio Bay.
Mm-hmm.
The entire thing is verbatim, by the way, from the short film.
Just a different actor as Andrew.
Just a different actor, but the same actor, by the way, of the poor guy who's playing the trombone, that he calls Elmer Fudd. That's the same actor in both the short film and
really
the movie. Yeah. So okay, this is like the thesis statement for the movie. Is this scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we start off with, which I like the context of, he's telling Andrew, what he tells him the room, tells him 6 a.m. right?
Yeah.
I like that Chazelle is giving us a little bit of, high anxiety of him being late, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because of course Andrew's going to be late, right? And he's actually 3 hours early. That's again, it's manipulation, right?
Yeah.
And once it's sort of, if you're not really understanding what Fletcher's trying to do, you're kind of going to be confused by his first small interactions with Andrew during the break, because he's being
Mm-hmm.
very, very supportive, very kind, very I don't know. I already said supportive, but he's being very warm to Andrew and very
Yeah.
inviting and very comforting. And when they start, um, he's again being very patient, right? And he's like, okay, nope, it's okay, let's keep going. Which, of course, if you watched, some of these videos, you know that Andrew is playing in perfect time. Andrew is not rushing nor dragging. Okay. Um,
Okay.
Andrew is not making a mistake, and and so as he's going to restart over and over, now he's getting more frustrated. He's getting more frustrated. And he's getting more nervous, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then once you get the chair thrown at him, um, then now he's at full anxiety, and Fletcher has now really begun his full emotional and physical and verbal abuse, right? With Andrew, to see if this is going to break him, because if this breaks him, we're done, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, especially with the slaps. Now, the slaps he is rushing. Uh, Fletcher is, to show him, what the difference is. Even though Andrew is not making mistakes, he is playing in perfect time, and
Right.
Fletcher knows he's playing in perfect time. By the way, because he knew that that trombone player was out of tune, but he let that guy leave, right?
Yeah. Because he
Because
didn't know.
not only did he not know, but he was so on edge, so nervous, so terrified that he broke down. And that's not okay, right? Because if that
Mm-hmm.
breaks you, you can never be great. And so
Right.
there's your first that's what it would look like if Andrew had given up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Done, I'm over, I'm done with you. Right? Get out. Right?
Right.
But again, the thing about Andrew is he's not going to give up, right? This is too
Yeah.
important to him. And that scene is, and of course, it's the scene that people cite when they talk about this movie, is his first day in studio band. What did you think about the scene,
Um.
by the way?
Well, so I've seen the scene in sort of like a a mixed cut up because you're gonna hate me so badly.
We'll see.
Back in, hang on, I gotta make sure I get the date right because
Okay.
I think it'll be really it's it's not gonna help my case. Okay, in 2014, when Weird Al Yankovic released his last album,
Uh huh.
he was gonna go on tour, and to promote the tour, they superimposed him in Whiplash and just kind of spliced together some of the scenes.
Okay.
So like when J.K. Simmons does the whole like, there's no Mars bar down there, and he's like, oh no, I have to have one for my blood sugar.
That's good.
So I've pretty much seen majority of that, but it was still actually watching the real scene from start to finish was honestly, I paused the movie and I told Ashley that I was going to bring this up to you. I meant to bring it up earlier, but now's a good time as any. That this was kind of triggering for me
Okay.
because being an orchestra, our senior year, our orchestra instructor was almost, not exactly, but almost as bad as Fletcher.
Interesting.
I mean, not really throwing chairs at people or anything like that, but definitely yelling, definitely like singling people out. Like, were you rushing? Were you dragging? Were you, and it was, I was like, Jesus Christ. Cause I know what that's like to be on kind of a receiving end.
Okay.
Again,
Interesting.
he never physically did anything to us, but it was very, very much beratement. And just like Fletcher, very much of this is your priority. Nothing else matters. Which I guess I don't have it because I was like, I'm a senior in high school. All I care about is graduating. Orchestra is not my priority right
No.
now. Um, so watching that scene and watching just the sheer relentlessness coming from Fletcher I was just like, Jesus Christ. And
Mm-hmm.
also the fact that Miles Teller let him really slap him
Yeah.
is even more. I was just like, good God. Like,
Well, and when the that sort of environment really just pits everyone against each other, right? Because
mm-hmm,
we see a little bit of a lot of resentment with Tanner and Andrew, of course, because Andrew's coming in to replace him, basically, right?
yeah,
Same thing with Connolly when he comes in, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So,
yeah,
um, in that environment, it's it's amazing how Chazelle shoots it is amazing, but the the way that it's militaristic, the way that
mm-hmm,
it's 3 seconds till 9, and so everyone stands up, everyone's eyes are on the floor, right?
mm-hmm,
um, they're terrified of him, right? And
yeah,
of course, once they get started, you can kind of see that's why they're terrified of him, because you can't make any mistake without it being noticed, and he knows exactly who made the mistake, right?
mm-hmm.
um it's
Yeah,
oof, you know
it's again, I'm gonna cite it again. Having seen that American Dad episode, I knew kind of. I was like, okay, he, I know he's gonna be hard. He's gonna be hard ass. But that whole scene with the trombones, and he even says like, you were rushing, but he didn't know the difference. I was like, oh my God. I was like, I wonder. I bet this guy feels fucking guilty now that he just had this poor guy
and
kicked
you know
out.
what? No, he doesn't.
Yeah.
And that's he smirks a little bit, and that's completely on purpose, because again, it's a dog eat dog environment that studio band is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So does he feel bad? Absolutely not. um he knew that I think he knew if he had spoken up, it was over, right?
Mm-hmm.
um and this poor kid, you know he never had a
Yeah.
chance. um
Yeah. Um. Yeah, and the same thing with Tanner. It took me a minute, but um, I was like, I wonder why Tanner's being so antagonistic towards Andrew, you
mhm.
know. But then when we got to when Connolly is reintroduced, I was like,
That's
oh,
what's going
now I
on,
get it.
right?
Now I get it. Yeah.
um so therein lies one of my favorite scenes in the whole film, and let's go ahead and talk about it, is the drum off, right?
Mm-hmm.
um and so, which of course, I mean, there's a lot of scenes that I love in this film. The montage of Andrew learning Whiplash
Oh yeah.
is a great sequence, because really you think maybe at first it's a little over the top, his hands, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but really it isn't. I promise. Because like um, I wasn't a drummer, but I was a snare drum in middle school, and I loved the drums, and I had drumsticks, and I would drum. I used to have a drum kit, like an electric one that I could plug headphones into, really cheap one. It was awesome though. I loved it. But if you do it for
Well,
like an hour, like your hands hurt. I mean, there's blisters forming, right? So if you're doing it all day without stopping as hard as you can go, your hands are going to shred. Okay, so
yeah.
that's pretty realistic. If I'm being honest, like it's not as over the top, I think, as some people might believe it might be. Um, and him getting that worked up, and him being that the furious obsession of it is amazing. Him dunking his hand in the ice, well, you know what I mean? Like it's God, what a great sequence, you know. But
Yeah.
all that to be said, so we get to this to one of the practices, and he's brought in Connolly to push Andrew, right? We find that out later.
Mm-hmm.
But and again, I don't think he was lying about this. He's using Connolly to push Andrew even further to the height of his ability and the peak of his talent, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot when they started. Maybe 6:00, 8:00.
Yeah, because he sows the seeds at the end of class,
Right.
and then when they all come back for rehearsal at 9,
It was at 9. Okay.
is when all hell breaks loose.
Yeah. So again, this is where we're introduced. Where again, I think maybe if you see it the first, second time, even maybe you think this is all sort of another manipulation, right? Of Sean Casey, his death, and how it affects Fletcher, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's all true. I choose to believe that what he's feeling is such devastation that he thought he had created a great musician, and he ended up not being able to handle it, right?
Mm-hmm.
There might be a little bit of guilt there, but I think most of it is just like, God damn it, like another great musician has given up and got discouraged, right?
Mm-hmm.
One that I think Fletcher would say that he created, right?
Right.
I think all of that is true. And so when in his current state, now he's even more, furious and more, willing to go even further to create a great musician, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when they're not playing as fast as he wants and as fast as the song requires, even if it's correct, it's not good enough, right?
Yeah.
And that's when we get this drum off, and just their hands alone at the end of this thing. I mean, oh man.
Well, and the thing that gets me is he chooses Andrew because Andrew shows him that he can do it,
Right.
and then he calls the rest of the band in, like, all right, now let's
Time to
rehearse.
start, right?
Like
But even
Jesus
so, like,
Christ.
even the way that Chazelle is showing the, this sort of drum off between the three of them, I mean, it's brutal because, again, it's 9:00 when they start, but then he starts showing you the clock, and he starts showing you people outside, and there's even people still in the room, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think I noticed that maybe like the third time I saw it, where I was like, oh, there's people still in there. Like, people are watching him do this to these
People
guys.
are witnessing him. Yeah.
And there are parts that are kind of funny, like the way he's talking to them is pretty funny. Dude, when Connolly starts messing with the seat, he goes like, oh, it was the seat? Now you have it, right? It's pretty funny. But again, they're so desperate and they're so tired, and they can
Yeah.
barely hold their sticks, and once Andrew starts going, now he's like, all right, let's see how far I can push him when he is going at his absolute limit, right? But yeah, you're right. When they're done, and when Andrew's got the part, and the drum set is covered in blood, and his hands are dripping, and he can barely hold on to the sticks, when he tells the rest of the band that practice can now start,
Yeah.
there's something about the way, there's something about that, man. It's just brutal. It's brutal.
Yeah. I was like, Jesus Christ, it can't get any worse than this. And honestly, the movie doesn't really get that worse after that. I feel like that that's the peak of how bad it gets.
Kind of. I mean, again, after that, it's just now it's how it's affected Andrew, right? Because
mm-hmm.
again, Andrew's not going to give up no matter what, right?
Right.
We've established that, but now he feels that he needs to be on that stage, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a little moment when Andrew forgets his sticks at the car rental place, and of
Mm-hmm.
course you're just screaming at the at the screen. You're just like, oh no, you know, this can't get any worse for Andrew. But there's this little moment of, I don't know if it's like, if it's just my own sort of like how I'm viewing it, um, through my own perspective. But when he calls Connolly Johnny Utah, which was funny by the way,
Yeah, it really was.
Fletcher also calls him Johnny Utah, and so that almost seemed like a small little bit of like camaraderie or bonding a little bit to me anyway. um a little
Well,
bit. There's a little bit of, like, especially that he's letting Andrew talk to him this way, right? Because I mean, he wouldn't take that
mhm.
normally,
Yeah,
from anybody,
I think
right?
he's recognizing in this moment, okay, Andrew's starting to get where I
Right,
want him.
exactly, right. And so where he is berating other musicians and colleagues, basically like fellow classmates, you know, um, Andrew is really just, he doesn't care about anybody, you know, he just cares about getting this part. Let's go on to the next thing, right? And even so, this is where I think the movie can get a little bit disbelieving, is when Fletcher sees the state of Andrew after the car crash, but he lets him do it anyway. You
Mm-hmm.
know, um, I'm suspending my disbelief a little bit because I know that both of them are so obsessive and so determined that they're both just letting it go. And they're like, okay, let's see. Right.
Right.
And you also wonder if Fletcher is just gonna see, okay, is he gonna make it through this? Right? Fletcher doesn't
Mm-hmm.
know he was in a crash necessarily. I think he can put it together that something horrible happened to him.
Yeah, that it took him long. He said his sticks were in the car and it
Right.
took
It
him
took him
longer to
forever.
get back.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right, 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 right. I always wondered who he was talking to on the phone. Um,
Yeah.
Sorry, my wife dropped her mouse on the floor.
I think it was one of the few guys in the band that Andrew has a somewhat of a relationship with. I would say either the piano player or the bassist.
See, I couldn't come up with anybody because it's like he doesn't give a shit about anybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Andrew could not care less about making friends or acquaintances or knowing these guys' names. I don't think he cares. You know? So I always found it that was like, who's calling? Who cares enough? You know,
Yeah.
to call Andrew. Um, but this actually brings me. Let's circle back a little bit because this we're gearing up towards we're the end here. Okay, but I want to circle back to um, what gets Andrew that core spot in the first place, which was the folder being lost, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and practicing, Whiplash every day, all day, for God knows how long, right?
I think it was a month because I feel like Fletcher said something about a month ago,
Right.
like when you played a month ago.
Oh, you're right. So, for 30 days, he's been
Yeah.
playing this song all day, right? So he knows it by heart, obviously. And I think Fletcher knew about Tanner's thing about not being able to memorize music. He would have had to.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, that's putting Andrew in the seat, right? So he's
Mm-hmm.
sabotaging Tanner to put it, because spoilers, Fletcher stole the folder. So
Is that like officially confirmed or?
yes, because at the very end at the jazz festival, he gives Andrew that folder. That's the folder he gives Andrew for the
Oh.
music. Because what does it not have? The music everyone else has, right?
Oh.
Right.
Okay.
So that confirm, that Fletcher stole the folder, right?
Okay.
Which is fantastic. I think that's one of those little fun tidbits of this film. Besides, you have to, of course, know music to know that Andrew is playing in perfect time,
Mm-hmm.
and that this is all a manipulation. Like, I didn't know that, right? Um, I just assumed he was fucking up, and that Fletcher's just trying to push him to be better, right? Not that he's already good, you know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So okay, I wanted to circle back to that because that's an important piece of the film that I'm sure Zach is like, he hasn't talked about the folder yet, you know.
Zach's. It's the scene from Brooklyn Nine-Nine where Jake's hitting on. Ask him about his bank account, and he breaks the.
Yeah.
Ask him about his bank account. This is Zach's
Talk about
doing.
the folder. Yeah.
Talk about. Then he breaks his phone.
Yeah.
Oh.
Whoops. Texting me. Talk about the folder. Um. Yeah. So we talked about the folder, which is important. I do want to talk a little bit about, before we move on to the ending, which is, a triumph, is the relationship between Andrew and his dad,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it's kind of a weird relationship, because they're not like super lovey-dovey with one another. Like they're not um like really close, yet they hang out all the time. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's the only
I think.
connection Andrew has with other people besides Nicole.
Yeah. And I think it's just one of those relationships where his dad has always been there.
Yeah.
Because as we learn, his mom disappeared when he was really young.
Yeah.
So growing up with dad, dad is the only person I really have any connection to
Yeah.
per se.
And where his dad is supportive, he thinks there's a limit, right?
I agree.
And of course, Andrew, there's no limit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but did you, by the way, fun little tidbit? Did you notice what movie they were watching in the beginning of the movie?
Oh, I was like, Rafifi!
Yeah, dude. Stoked. Yeah,
Yeah. I would have loved if we got like a little like behind the head shot and we saw the screen.
yeah. Saw the robbery scene
Now,
for sure.
now seeing Rafifi, yeah, I fucking love that movie.
Yeah,
But that was cool.
and Raisinets in the popcorn. I've never put candy in popcorn, by the way. That was news to me. I know this
So
doesn't mean
that
anything to
was
the movie, but
sidebar. That's like one of the only few scenes I had seen
okay.
because there's a YouTuber I really like who recreates uh, food from movies, and he did an episode just on that, and he always starts the episode with the clip, and
Yeah.
so I was like, "Where's this from?" And then watching it last night, I was like, "Well, no, I did know where it was from because he says the title of the movie too."
Okay.
And but I still loved seeing it, especially just the cadence of the conversation.
Yeah.
Where he's like, "No, I eat around the Raisinets. I don't like them." And his dad's like, "Well, then why didn't you
Yeah,
say
I don't
anything?"
understand you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay. So uh, once Andrew, tackles Fletcher for, putting him through all of this, and was all for nothing, right? Like Andrew is like, I have proven to you that I will do anything, and push through anything, and sacrifice everything, right? for this, and you're just gonna let a little car crash slide. By the way, actually broke J.K. Simmons' ribs. He broke 2 ribs being tackled.
Really?
I think you can hear it.
Oh shit!
But it might just be just just him hitting the floor. I don't know. I think you can hear the crack, but that's just me. So so after he does that, and he gets bullied basically into speaking about Fletcher in that lawsuit, which, by the way, insane again. That Andrew's like, no, that's cool.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say anything.
Yeah,
Just
that
shows you
he
that he gets it. I think Andrew and Fletcher are, this Andrew will become Fletcher. I think later on down the line. I think that's where he's headed.
I want to save mine for the end,
Okay.
because some of the videos I watched, I completely agreed with what they said, but we'll get there.
Because he's not saying it because he understands a little bit. Like he knows that this is all terrible, right? But he also understands that Andrew believes, he goes, I can persevere through this, most people can't. Right? You guys don't understand, but I do. Right? I understand. So you guys, I mean, like Sean Casey has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
But again, he was bullied and manipulated into talking, and again, such a wonderful scene. And this is sort of the flip side of the other scenes with Andrew and Fletcher. Is now we get to see who Fletcher is. Right? This is the culmination of Terrence Fletcher. And again, I don't think really this is a manipulation. Yes, it's a manipulation to get him to the jazz festival, right? But I do think that he's telling some truths here, especially his philosophy on what it takes to be great, right?
100%.
You know what it takes, whatever it takes, right?
Yeah.
And it was prominently displayed in the trailer. I think it's one of the best delivered lines in the film, is Fletcher saying, there is no phrase more harmful in the English language than good job. Right?
Yeah.
And yikes, right? Because at this point of the film, I kind of understand, right? I have now been brainwashed and manipulated and abused into thinking that maybe he's right. Maybe complacency and mediocrity and settling for just okay is pretty terrible, right? And maybe Fletcher has a point, Yeah. Do I really believe that? Not really. But J.K. Simmons is such a dynamic performer that I'm like, maybe.
Well, so here's my thing. And it's a little taste of what's to come once we get to the finale. I disagree. I feel like there has to be a line somewhere.
All right.
Like, I agree with what he's saying to a point. Like complacency, like with retelling Charlie Parker's story of, what if he just said, "Oh, good job," and then Charlie went home and thought he was, did a good job.
Yeah,
That'd be the
I
end
did
of the
fine.
story.
Yeah.
I agree. But there has to be a line. There has to be a line that you can't cross. And even Andrew offers that.
Yeah.
Well, where's the breaking point? Where do you stop? And Fletcher pretty much says without saying, you don't stop. You keep going. Like you keep going until you come out on the other side better, or you're broken.
Yeah.
And personally, to me, there has to be a line somewhere.
Yeah. And sorry, I'm checking my notes.
No, you're good.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I probably agree with that more than I agree with Fletcher being 100% correct. Because his example is such a great example of Charlie Parker. You know, if they had said, you know what, you did fine, and he goes home saying, you know what, maybe I did, you know,
Mhm.
and then I don't have these, you know, 3 Charlie Parker albums in my collection, right? It doesn't exist,
Yeah.
right? Um, it's we don't get the beautiful dynamic music, right? And that's what it's all
Mhm.
about. It's about producing the best, the greatest, the most perfect, the most beautiful, the most meaningful music. And that's what Fletcher cares about the most, right?
Yeah, because and we do see in this, and again, I agree with you that he's being honest and he's being open and vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think
Good
a
point.
part of it is a manipulation, but I think he's also it's a manipulation, but he's also being genuine.
Because
Where he's saying,
he didn't he didn't like orchestrate Andrew walking in there, right? This is all
yeah,
happenstance, but he just took his moment, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah.
but yeah, yeah, I do think he is being genuine, and he truly believes he's. I liked the term that one of the videos I saw, and again, hopefully, Future Rain has put this in the edit.
Mm,
Um, as withholding one of the pillars of the old way of doing things.
mm,
You know, he really holds himself up to that standard, you know.
yeah.
And I think that's why with what you're saying, I think that's why he thinks he's not wrong
Mm,
in his methods. Because this is how you have to get, as you just said, beautiful, meaningful music.
yeah.
You have to push the boundaries. You have to push limits. Um,
Because really that's what I mean, I'm not Ken Burns, but this is what, you know, jazz comes from, right? Jazz comes from
mhm,
hardship. Um, you know, jazz comes from emotion. And so without it, your music is soulless, right?
yeah.
And so that's, I mean, Fletcher understands the history of jazz and understands what it takes to create the best and beautiful, meaningful jazz. Um,
Mhm,
and so really that's what it boils down to.
yeah.
But when, oh, dude, when he calls Nicole, I almost can't
Oh,
handle it.
because of her having already moved on, or
I think it's more secondhand embarrassment for Andrew
mhm,
and more like he, you know, again, Andrew is so complex because he has these competing philosophies and these competing emotions because on one hand he completely agrees with Fletcher and it takes everything, right?
mhm,
But on the other hand, he almost wants to be the people he sees as distracted, right? And
mhm,
so, like, he's moved away from music. He got kicked out of Schaefer, right? And so, for for tackling Fletcher, um, and I guess costing them that competition. I guess that's probably what it was mostly. Um, and so now he's like, maybe there is a happy medium, right?
mhm,
But I think in unfortunately, I think because Nicole is smart and and is emotionally intelligent and understands that this guy's sort of not for me and not for most people.
mhm.
That, you know, she doesn't take the bait and she already has someone anyway, and so it doesn't matter, right?
Right.
In that there, I think unfortunately is sort of the tipping point back to this way of Andrew's philosophy of I don't need anyone, right?
Mhm.
because now we're getting to the jazz festival, right?
Right.
And where he goes completely over the edge, right? And I'll
Mm-hmm.
explain what that means here in a minute, because when you watch it, it's like, no, he didn't, but yes, I think he did, right? So again, you're excited but nervous for Andrew because, this is too good to be true. And when's the other shoe going to drop?
Yeah.
And when it does, my heart sank. I was like, oh no, you know, um, especially when Fletcher comes out and he's wearing his black t-shirt and he's being nice, right? He's not being, nasty, and he's not being rude, and he's not being crass or vulgar. Um, but there's that quick shot, and Chazelle is a genius. So we're following Andrew out onto the stage, and it quickly pans to Fletcher putting on his jacket, and the
Mm-hmm.
way he looks at Andrew, and you're like, uh-oh. It's not even a full second, you know? But again,
Yeah.
Chazelle is so brilliant in the way he's using his camera, and we'll get to how he shoots his scenes in a minute once we're done talking about the film itself. But um, when he goes up to Andrew, and it's almost like, ta-da, I've tricked you, you know.
Yeah.
It's devastating, and it's almost like, I don't know if Chazelle meant for this to feel this way, but it feels like you're having a dream where it's test day and you've never been to this class before, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or I'm giving a presentation, but I don't, this class isn't on my schedule. I've never been here before, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so now he's having to play this piece of music with no music that he's never seen before, heard before. And, he's scrambling and struggling. And again, we're creating a, a very, a very competitive environment where the bass player is not happy with him, nor should he be,
Yeah.
right? And the other players are sort of, when it's their turn to stop playing, they're looking at him and they're glaring at him, and they can't believe he's sabotaging this song. For what reason, right? And it's so hard to watch.
Yeah. I fought the urge to fast forward through it because it's like, oh my god.
You
But I was
really
like,
want to.
nope, nope. I'm gonna sit and I'm gonna watch and see what happens.
And then you get this sort of, like, his dad is very sweet and
Yeah.
and very compassionate, very supportive, um, very comforting, because he immediately knows what's going on, and he immediately runs to the side of the stage so he can, comfort his son after that. But when Andrew turns around, decides, no, absolutely not, I can't let this go. It's sort of like he's completely, he's completely gone over the edge, like I said, right? He is
Mm-hmm.
so obsessive that he needs to prove Fletcher wrong, or at least prove Fletcher right, in a way. Prove to
Yeah.
Fletcher that he was right to push him as far as he did, right? And the look on Paul Reiser's face during the drum solo,
Mm-hmm.
that should have won Paul Reiser an Oscar.
Yeah. One of the videos I saw had the script playing all over that scene,
Mhm.
and apparently Damien Chazelle had written in the script uh the look of Paul Reiser's face is, my son is lost.
Mhm. Yeah.
And almost like he knew in that moment, like, Andrew's gone.
Yeah.
Like he's not coming back.
So Damien Chazelle got a note from the studio when when I guess they saw that they screened the film for the studio, and the studio wrote, "He's good at drumming. We get it." For the last 10 minutes, right? And yeah, I get it, what they meant, but really that's not the point. Which obviously they missed the point. The point is that he, like you said, and like the script says, he's completely lost. He has completely given himself over to this, right? And almost like, and again, giving himself over to Fletcher and Fletcher's philosophy of music in a way that maybe on the surface seems like he's getting back at Fletcher, but that's not really what's going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the scene is so dynamic and it's so brilliantly shot, and it's a lot of fun to watch, especially if you like music, you like jazz, then it's cool anyway, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, the 10-minute music sequence is, I guess for some people it may be too much, but not for me. But
well, it was awesome, and I was like, yeah, like you said, 10 minutes. I was like, we're getting close to the end of this thing. How are they going to end this?
yeah,
And then yeah, I was like, that's what sealed the deal. After the movie was over, I was like,
so
so good.
there are moments within that sequence that is sort of like, you see sort of the evolution of going from, I hate you, I'm getting back at you, to, well, hold on now, what's going on, to, I've succeeded, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a moment after Caravan ends, technically, and Andrew keeps playing, his cymbal falls and Fletcher immediately picks it up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or where when he keeps playing and Fletcher goes, "What are you doing, man?" Like, Fletcher doesn't talk like that, right? Fletcher is now
Yeah.
starting to see Andrew as, a success story, a I wouldn't say equal, but we're getting close. And
Mm-hmm.
and again, it's when they're both starting to, cue each other on certain moments of the solo and certain, tempo changes and melody changes, and especially when he starts doing the famous, roll, slow, back to roll, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you get that weird shot of Fletcher where it's the bridge of his nose up, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
hard to tell what his expression is, right? Which is
Mm-hmm.
completely on purpose. And then you get that moment of Andrew taking that beat to pause, and then they almost see each other, I think, at that moment as equals. And that moment
Yeah.
of shared success, of, you were successful in pushing me, and I was successful in proving that it takes everything and sacrifice everything to be able to reach this level of musicianship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then the movie's over.
Yeah. Which brings me to the thing that I was going to bring up.
Go for it.
Where one of the first videos I saw is how the ending of the movie is not a happy ending, technically.
Technically, no. I would agree.
Because I even saw an interview with Damien Chazelle where he said, I wanted to do the happiest sad ending I can do.
Mm-hmm.
Because essentially, like what we've been talking about, what Andrew just did is validated all of Fletcher's abuse.
Right.
That he was right. That it takes me pushing you to the breaking point for something good to come out of it. And, when I finishing the movie last night, I was in the camp of, well, Andrew was successful.
Yeah.
He was victorious. He proved Fletcher wrong. And then when I started doing my research and watching these videos, I was like, oh wait, he proved Fletcher right.
Right.
I mean, he proved him wrong in the sense of, you don't think I can do this. I can do this.
Right.
But he proved him right in the sense of all the abuse that you've done, the chairs you've thrown at me, the sacrifices I've had to make. You were right. And it's very interesting that that's the way that Damien Chazelle wanted to end the film, of this indirect point proven kind of thing. Where essentially Fletcher gets away scot-free. I mean, besides losing his job, he doesn't see any repercussions. And what I wanted to save for you, because you were saying how you definitely can see Andrew rising to Fletcher's level.
Mm-hmm.
Miles Teller thinks that Andrew won't live past 30.
Yeah, that's probably true. That's probably true also.
That Miles Teller was even like, no, Andrew will succumb to loneliness and he won't make it past 30.
Yeah.
And which is sad because, again, happiest sad ending, we see Andrew in this moment be so triumphant and proving that he can be one of the greats.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing that his fate is pretty much sealed is sad.
Yeah, I think if this film were shot like Animal House, at the very end there would be text with a freeze frame of him playing the drums, saying that
of where he's at.
Yeah, and saying that Andrew Neiman, which by the way Fletcher calls him Neiman. That's again, he's disrespecting him by not calling him by his real name. Andrew Neiman, after the jazz festival was picked up by this jazz label, played for a few years on these specific albums, succumbed to drug use by the age of blah blah blah, died of an overdose, age 28. You know what I mean? Like I can see that going on, because he'll have success after this, but how long will that last? And then once it starts to dip, what's he going to do to try to combat that dip in success, and that dip in his life goals? Right.
I agree. Yeah, because that's not something that Fletcher really, I don't think, plans for. He plans to, I'm going to get you.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn you from a lump of coal into a diamond. But past that point,
it's because
I don't think
it's because it's not sustainable. Right.
Mm-hmm.
If it were sustainable, I mean, then everyone would do it probably, or maybe not everyone, but we wouldn't have like the 27 Club, for instance, if this type of determination were sustainable.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, but even though the movie does have a bit of a sad and a sad ending, man, the fact that it ends kind of triumphantly also is something.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a good segue to what you wanted to talk about, Damien Chazelle's use of camera.
Yeah. So what I thought was fascinating was, Chazelle, it's sort of like, how do you make someone, a jazz ensemble, how do you make that dynamic and interesting to watch? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And the way Chazelle would tell you is that you shoot it like a fight scene. So you shoot lots and lots of cuts, very fast, very quick, very I don't know, like lots of succession, right? So it's like in quick
Mm-hmm.
succession. So that's why like the camera's here, then it's here, then it whip pans to here, and then now we're going to look at the horns, and now we're going over here, and now you know what I mean. We're seeing pretty much every piece of that drum kit, right, and from all
Mm-hmm.
different angles. And since the music is so fast paced, so will the cuts and the camera movements be equally as fast
Mm-hmm.
paced, right?
Yeah.
And it is really entertaining to watch. There's a little bit of this in the film that he wrote before this called Grand Piano. It's with Elijah Wood and John Cusack. It's a little silly. The idea of it is a little silly, but it's fun, right?
Okay.
But there's a little bit of these ideas that you can see that will turn into perfection in Whiplash, and then later in La La Land.
Wait, he did La La Land?
Yeah.
Wait. Did he direct it or did he write it?
Yes. Both.
He did both?
Yeah.
So you mean to tell me he's responsible for white-splaining jazz to everyone?
Yes. Yes, he is.
That's look, okay. That's not gonna ruin this movie for me,
Well, should it?
but I am slightly disappointed.
Well, I, with the help of Mr. Ken Burns, just white-splained a little bit of jazz to you not 10 minutes ago. So let's not go crazy. All right.
One of my favorite jokes about La La Land was in Big Mouth when Andrew is talking about jazz and Duke Ellington, voiced by Jordan Peele, goes,
Yeah.
"Are you La La Landing me?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, now that was a perfect movie. What is even Moonlight?"
So hilarious. Yes, Damien Chazelle wrote and directed La La Land. Also First Man, which I loved.
Okay. So he's worked with Gosling a lot.
And most recently he did Babylon. So
Okay. All right. He's redeemed now.
Babylon. First off, La La Land is a good movie. All right, I really like La La Land.
I refuse. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I refuse to watch that movie.
That's fine. First Man is also incredible, and then Babylon is just a tour de force of style and I don't know what you would say, like excess,
Mm-hmm.
which is also a really really good movie. So what I love about Andrew choosing Caravan, right? Because he chooses Caravan, not Fletcher, right? To play at the very end. Because that's what he was playing. First off, for the drum off, that was the song they were practicing for in the first place. But then also when he got kicked out of Schaefer, that was the song they were playing. Right? That was Caravan. And so I thought that was significant that that's the song he chose to throw Fletcher off his game, get back at him, and then show him and prove him right. At the end, I liked that choice. That it wasn't the title track Whiplash; it was Caravan.
Yeah, which I love that he cuts him off. Like, no, fuck you, we're going.
Yeah, of course. Because it was supposed to be a slow tune anyway. And no.
Yeah, yeah, man. It's phenomenal. Like, it truly is. The movie is phenomenal. Yes, it does have a bummer ending. Well, not really a bummer. It's just a somber ending.
It's sort of a hidden bummer ending, right? It's a hidden sad film that on the surface doesn't seem very sad until you start to think about it. Which I like, which is what good films should do. Good films should stick with you for a while and have you think and mull over and ponder and try to dig a little bit deeper.
Yeah, man. Because again, all the acting was phenomenal. I mean, again, J.K. Simmons, amazing. He got an Oscar for this movie, didn't he?
He did. Mm-hmm.
I mean, J.K. is phenomenal. I think he's become so much more than just a character actor. You know, definitely, I would say in his career, he started off as a character actor, but I think he has proven that he's so much more than that.
Oh, like, I mean,
Um,
far above and beyond proven. I
oh
mean,
yeah, yeah,
even in Oz, he stole that whole show, you know. And Oz
yeah.
is the definition of ensemble cast. Not everyone is in every episode, but they're in the background, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, God, that's a great show. Watch Oz.
Where can I watch Oz?
HBO. It was
Okay. Oh, you
HBO's.
mean Max?
It was HBO's first 1 hour drama.
Until that became the standard.
Yes.
No. Anyway, but you know, even you know, obviously Miles Teller. I think this movie really elevated him from the raunchy college comedies to where he could do movies like, you know, like shit, the Top Gun, and
Spectacular Now I heard was really good, although I didn't see it.
I've got it on the shelf.
Oh, nice.
Which I haven't seen.
Heard was good. No clue. You know, haven't seen it.
I only got it because A24 distributed it. That's the only reason why I got it. But you know, because the first movie I ever saw him in was a movie called 21 and Over,
mm-hmm.
which is, you know, a dumb college movie about these friends taking their friend who just turned 21 out drinking for the first time, and
mm-hmm.
essentially The Hangover, but in college.
Interesting.
And it's fine. It's a good dumb comedy, and Miles is funny, but I just feel like this movie really let him showcase a side I don't think anyone had seen yet,
mm-hmm.
and which has since, I think, catapulted his career. So yeah, man, the movie's fantastic. It wasn't as anxiety inducing as I thought it would be, like
Sure.
Uncut Gems or Good Time was.
Yeah.
But still, it's still phenomenal. And with that, we've already been kind of doing it. But Jeremy, are you ready to wrap up?
I am. Unfortunately, it was overshadowed by some really great films that year. I think Birdman also came out that year, which ended up winning Best Picture.
Yes.
Boyhood
yes, because
came out that year.
Oh shit! Really?
So yeah, it's, you know, it was in good company. I bet you. I don't remember what I wanted to win that year for Best Picture. That was when I was still watching the Oscars. When I still gave a shit about the Oscars. I wasn't expecting Birdman to win, but I think I wanted Boyhood, of course, because I'm such a huge Linklater fan and Ethan Hawke.
Of course.
And the idea was so ingenious, and the amount of time and effort, right? So I really respected that. And but I think if Boyhood weren't there, I would have said Whiplash all the way, because Whiplash was the one I think affected me the most emotionally afterward. Because I was just, pumped after that movie. After I was done with the movie, I was pumped, bro. I couldn't believe how awesome that was. So
yeah. I guess a little oops, I forgot.
Sure.
Because it leads into yours. You know, Damien Chazelle couldn't get the funding, which I'm sure you know. He couldn't get the funding for the movie, so he made the short film and showcased it, and that's what got him the funding.
Yeah.
Which is insane, because insane in a good way, because it shows that people were like, okay, you got something here. Here's our money. Give us the full product.
If you watch the short film, you're probably going to be a little disappointed, because it doesn't have the same feel, especially in the way, in just the setting alone. It's in a very bright, you know, windowed classroom, you know, and so it feels like something that would be in your high school or in your college, which is off-putting when you know what the final product looks like. It doesn't seem to fit, because the very dark, dim, foreboding practice room is perfect, you know.
Yeah,
for Fletcher was
100%.
Torment, but this brightly lit classroom isn't really a good fit. It's still fantastic. It's still awesome, but just be warned.
Yeah, yeah. But, well, Jeremy, with that, are you ready to hear what we're going to talk about next week?
Yeah.
Because I just decided what we're going to do.
Okay. Am I gonna be jazzed? Nailed it. But anyway, no.
I can't think of a good.
Am I gonna be stoked?
I can't think of a good one.
That's okay.
Yes, 100%.
All right. Cool.
And this one I think is going to take us some time. And you'll know. I mean, as soon as I say it, you'll understand.
All right.
So, Jeremy, you know we haven't talked about in quite a while.
Who?
Since season 6, I believe.
That far.
You know, we haven't talked about David Lynch in a while.
Cool.
Next week, we are doing David Lynch's 1992 film Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me.
Okay.
It is officially time. Now, some of our listeners, Zach, if they know, the movie is technically a prequel to the show. But the reason why I want to do the movie is because the movie does such a good job of also standing on its own. So you don't really need to have seen the show to know the movie. Of course, obviously, Lynch made it for the people who have seen the show.
Yeah.
But the movie, like, I remember when I really got into Twin Peaks and I finally saw the movie, I was like, this is on another level. And honestly, truth be told, even though we've done early Lynch and we've done later Lynch, I feel like this is peak Lynch.
Wow.
Unless you think I'm wrong.
I think peak Lynch is Twin Peaks: The Return. I think that's
okay.
I think that's pure David. That is his magnum opus. That is his masterpiece. That, to me, is what makes David Lynch. Is Twin Peaks: The Return. But I mean, I don't disagree. This world of Twin Peaks is so Lynch and Mark Frost.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, yeah, okay. You were correct. Yeah. It is quite an undertaking, and that's fine.
Well, I told when I told my assistant manager Quentin, who's also a huge Twin Peaks fan, mm-hmm. He has the evil symbol, the dot with the tattooed on his wrist right here. When I told him, I was like, yeah, this is on my list. He was like, oh, so it'll just be a Twin Peaks episode then. I was like, yeah, probably.
Yeah, I guess.
But man, but like I said, it is going to be an undertaking because there's a lot in the film that, again, if you've seen the show, you'll understand. But the film is just it's this weird thing. That's all I can really think of to say.
I mean, this may get people excited by using keywords, using catchphrases like, guys, Fire Walk With Me has a lot of lore. So
that's true. Yeah. I mean,
me reading the diary of Laura Palmer over here, like.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have gotten this tattoo if I didn't love the world of Twin Peaks.
That's true.
So, of course, if you're watching, you would just see me hold up my arm. But I think that's enough tease for next week.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Right. Next week, Twin Peaks: Fire Walk With Me.
Cool.
Yeah. So, everyone, thank you for joining us this week. We hope you enjoyed Whiplash, and we will see you next week.